recently, Jill and I got to go on a field trip. Jill, where did you take us?
We went to Jones Beach Theater to see Hall Oates, and we got to get an interview with John Oates for you.
Now, how did that happen? You've known John Oates for a while. How did that start?
Well, I've been a big fan of Hall Oates for many years. I've gone to so many concerts, but I had the opportunity to really hang out with him and get to know him a little on the cruise. It was called Sail Across the Sun, featuring band Train. I gave him some of my products for Made Man, my products for men. He loved it. I met his wife, and we stayed in touch. So this was a perfect opportunity for you to have a nice interview with him, and he gets to talk to you and introduce Live It Up. And I got to work my magic on him, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, we did have a good time.
It was
so
a great time.
We invite you now to join us. Here's our interview with John Oates.
Call your name, I keep reaching out so I can ease the pain. I can't stop thinking about.
David Brenner and I used to hang out in New York in the 80s, and then he got a place in Aspen, Colorado, which was where I've been living for 25 years. So we've, we used to see each other all the time, he's come to my shows, I've gone to his shows, and he was a great guy, really great guy. One of the cool comedians who was actually funny all the time, not just when he was on stage. I thought very highly of him. He used to send me these really funny and weird emails, and I saved a bunch of them. I don't know if I still have them, but he would always be sending me something really bizarre and sometimes political. Yeah.
You have had a long-standing, wonderful career, part of Hall Oates, but you also have your own music that you've been doing. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because you have a new thing coming out.
Well, I was a little late to the party when it came to embarking on a solo career. I did my first solo album in 2000, year 2000. But since then, I've really devoted a lot of time and energy to it. So I put out 5 or 6 albums, and I have 2 DVDs that I've done as well. So it's really been, once I kind of made the transition to Nashville in the early 2000s. And once I did that and really got involved with a great community of musicians, things just started to pop. And I love it. It's much more roots oriented. I kind of lean and I go back to my earliest influences. Before I met Daryl and before we began to work together, I was into folk music, blues, early R&B, early rock and roll. So my solo music really, I think, has a lot more to do with those early roots and the traditional American styles that I grew up on.
And sometimes people say even that influence, they can hear it, just a little hint of it, when you are part of the group. It's like, it's hard to, like, when you're doing it and it's your sound, like you have your own customized sound.
Well, when Daryl and I got together, what we did is we blended this traditional American folky thing that I was doing with a lot of the doo-wop and urban R&B that Daryl was doing. And that blending is what ended up becoming our sound. And it's not obvious, but it's always kind of there. And of course, there's that Philly element, with certain types of chord changes and melodies and harmonies that we do. So it's really, I think Hall Oates, the music we've made together is a really unique blending of a lot of traditional American rock and roll and R&B styles.
And you've had a stellar career. I mean, Hall of Fame, multiple millions of records sold. One of the things I like about what you're doing now is you're collaborating with others like Vince Gill. Yeah. What made you decide to do that? And call him up and say, hey, you know what? I kind of like you. Like, let's play.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did, by the way. Well, that's the beauty of living in Nashville. You have this incredible pool of talent, and it's from the top down or from the bottom up, however you want to look at it. Everything from the guys who repair guitars and amplifiers to the engineers and the assistant engineers and the players, the studio musicians and the singers and the producers and on and on and on. Everyone is at the top of their game, and eventually, it's a small music community. You get to meet people, and so every time I'd meet anyone that I respected or liked, I would basically just hit them up and say, hey, let's do something together. And that seems to be the pervading attitude in Nashville. People always say, yeah, let's get together and write, or let's get together and, hey, you want to sit in? And there's so much music going on that there's just this free-flowing collaboration that happens. So I did the same thing with Ryan Tedder from One Republic. I met him in an airport. And I just said, hey man, let's do something together. And it was just a matter of putting our schedules together. And that's really how this whole collaborative process has been. If it's not, nothing is forced, nothing is artificial. It either happens, naturally, and we have a lot of fun doing it, or it doesn't happen.
It's kind of neighborly. And maybe along the time that, because your career was like, so trajectory, right? It's just like, boom, right? Yeah. Maybe you didn't have time to kind of sit and just be and play and be somebody's neighbor, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, when Daryl and I were, doing, in fact, the entire decade of the 80s, all we did was work. We wrote, we recorded, made videos, and toured. And that cycle just continued for years and years. And it wasn't really until the 90s when we began to slow down a bit that I began to explore other things. And it's really culminated in the decade of the 2000s, where I really had more time to myself and a chance to explore these other options. So, like I said, Nashville's just been a super positive experience for me.
It was joyful for me to read about that, because I see now that even though you have a legacy, now it seems like you're really living. Like you've had time now, right?
I know I'm glad you picked up on that, because it's true. And the beauty of it is that the Hall & Oates success paved the way and provide the foundation for me to be able to do that. So now that I am able to do it, I don't want to waste that opportunity. Not many creative people get that opportunity. That's something that creative people dream about. Hey, I want to be in that position in my career or my life where I can do anything I want. Well, I'm actually in that position, so I don't take it for granted. I like to make the most of it while I've still got the this and this,
And speaking of this, I know that you run your own Songwriters Festival. Can we talk about that and what that means to you?
Well, yeah, I started something called the Aspen Songwriters Festival a number of years ago. We did four of them, and then due to some issues beyond my control, which had to do with money, unfortunately, which is usually what happens, we had to put it on hiatus. But we're thinking about bringing it back, and I've also been involved with other songwriters festivals in different parts of the country. Actually, this comes from one in Florida.
Oh, let me see that. So there's
a gal down on the Gulf Coast of Florida who makes these for the artists who come down and perform at something called the 30A Songwriters Festival, and they're popping up all over the world. They're even in Europe now. So I think it's great that songwriters finally get a chance to perform, because most of these songwriters who most people think are behind the scenes are actually incredibly talented performers as well. So. And
they're just waiting to be able to have their thing heard. Mm-hmm. One of the things I wanted to ask you too, I saw your necklaces. What other mementos did you keep along the way? Is there like a shelf at your house, or is there like a little treasure box of sorts where?
Not too nostalgic. I have stuff. I mean, of course, I have the awards and things there in my studio and various things like that. Actually, it's funny. You should mention it. This bracelet I bought in the 1970s when I first moved to New York. I bought it on 59th Street at a little hip shop in the 70s. And I wore it on my wrist pretty much every show I've ever done. Wow. And one day I'm expecting it to just fall apart, but so far it's just nothing really. It's just a stainless steel bracelet. It's not special. It's not valuable, but it's just this thing that I put on my wrist back in the day and still on my wrist.
And it reminds you of times then, right? It's with you, right?
It reminds me to perform.
Okay.
It's like my little ritual. I put the bracelet on and I play.
Showtime.
Right.
It's like me, when they put all my makeup and stuff on, it's like, okay, Donna Drake, it's showtime.
That's
right. I'm the same person, but I get it.
It's a ritual. It's actually good. And it's the same way with me. I know a lot of performers, they're very casual, and they kind of perform in the same clothes that they kind of arrive in during the day. And, but I have a certain thing that I have to put a certain kind of pair of pants on and certain boots, and I don't. It's almost like an athlete getting ready to play a game. You got to put on your pads and your uniform, and so I don't feel right about. I mean, I could certainly just go on stage just like this, but I'm going to change before I go on, and and it's probably in my head, but it's okay.
No, I think it's a respect for yourself and the audience. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's just something like that. You want to bring it.
Well, you're right about that too. And a country star, an old country star, told me a long time ago that the audience doesn't want to see you dressed like you walk around the street. They want to see something special. They paid their money. They want to see something that's above and beyond. So even though it may look casual, like it's really streetwear, it's not.
That makes sense to me. And moving forward, now that you have your own solo thing going on, what else do you aspire to? Like, what would bring you the greatest joy? If I was the fairy godmother of all creatives right now and I could grant any wish, what would that be for you?
Okay. You could get me a G4 and fly me back to Colorado tonight after the show.
Okay. Could you miss your family?
Yeah, well, I am heading back tomorrow, but I'm going pedestrian.
Okay.
I will get there. It'll take all day, but I'll get there. Now, not really. I mean, I have a lot of projects I still want to do. I'm writing a book. I'm in the middle of writing a book, and it's not the Hall & Oates story without Daryl. It's really about the earliest days of the things that influenced me, like I was talking about earlier, and how Daryl and I got together and the struggle that it took for us to become a group. And I think that's a story that people don't know about. They know about the 80s, they know about the hits, they know all that stuff, but people don't realize what it took to get there. And that's what my book's going to be more focused on. So I'm hoping that comes out in 2016. And I have a pilot for a television show as well that I'm working on. It's called Good Road to Follow, which is also the title of my solo album. And it's going to be about roots music and traditional music in different regions of America, and what makes it important, and characters and unique characters, and hopefully some young artists who are carrying the torch to keep that music alive.
Well, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I've got a lot of irons in the fire.
Good for you. And also, and one more thing, and animals too. We can't.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of animals. Well, we just got 2 new puppies.
Okay.
So we have 2 Bernese Mountain Dogs. And that's why my wife is in Colorado taking care of them. I think she likes them more than she likes me.
And what did you name them?
One's Kobe and one's Karma.
Nice.
Male and female. And we have llamas and alpacas, and we have emus, the Australian birds, the big giant birds. We have a lot of weird animals that pass in and out of our farm. We have a little ranch in Colorado. And my wife grew up in a farming family in Kankakee, Illinois. So she just loves that stuff. She loves rescuing animals and finding them and all that sort of thing.
Well, I grew up in St. Louis, and I know exactly where your wife grew up.
Yeah,
I know that town.
Kankakee, that's right.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time that you spent with us. It's such an honor to meet you, and a joy. And I think that when you spend time like this to let people that are in your audience that have followed you so long, that are so passionate about what you do, it gives them an opportunity to feel like they're your friend. So thank you for that.
And thank you. Yeah, and thanks for coming out and making the sunshine.
Yes,
Hopefully
I did. Did you know that?
I know, you did.
I was dancing in the parking lot, John.
Without you, it would be raining.
I'm like, live
We're
it
gonna
up, live it up.
We're going to have a great night at Jones Beach, I guarantee it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.